places, like California, the same person votes many times. You probably heard about that. They always like to say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Not a conspiracy theory, folks. Millions and millions of people.
To the inauguration,
we had a massive field of people. You saw that. Packed. It went all the way back to the Washington Monument.
To statements like this.
What you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
Donald Trump has had a fraught relationship with the truth, one that goes back decades to the building and selling of Trump Tower, where Barbara Rez managed the construction.
He planted that Princess Di was looking for an apartment in Trump Tower.
And that didn't happen?
No.
Oh.
But it made the papers.
Sure. So veracity wasn't a part of it. It was just getting the buzz out there
Yes.
about Trump. Did you guys laugh at it, or?
Yeah. Because there was nothing so terrible about it. I mean, you know, it was kind of like puffing. You know, it was like exaggerating.
Tony Schwartz, co-author of Trump's Art of the Deal, has a name for this.
I came up with this phrase, truthful hyperbole, which is, you know, I called it an innocent form of exaggeration. Now I can call something that I actually sold for $2 million, I can say $10 million, and that becomes truthful hyperbole. The problem is that there is no such thing as truthful hyperbole. The truth is the truth. Hyperbole is a lie. They don't go together.
And they didn't go together during the troubled opening of Trump's Atlantic City Taj Mahal casino in 1990, when some of the slots didn't work.
When the Casino Control Commission went down there on opening day to check out that all the things had been done, many things hadn't been done. They shut down a third of the slots.
Slots that were critical to the casino's success.
The slots are the prime revenue producer of the casino. To shut down the third on opening day was both humiliating and financially disastrous. And it was only done because he doesn't have, an organization in depth.
But that wasn't the story Trump told.
Something could go bad, like the opening of the Taj, and he would say, it's because we had so much business here that this happened. Not that the systems broke down, not that we didn't know what we were doing. We had so much business it broke down. Truly, he just would lie about everything.
And he did.
What about the slot machine thing where they were down for a while?
The slots were so hot. Nobody's seen people play that hard and that fast.
So what, it blew out the slots, literally?
They blew apart. We had machines that they were virtually on fire.
Donald is so wrapped up in hyperbole that it's almost constant lies. Whether it's the littlest things where, if you had 2,000 people at an event, he would say there were 5,000 people at an event.
And he got away with it.
There's no belief system. If it will work, I will say it. If it stops working, I'll say it's opposite, and I will not feel any compunction about saying it's opposite because I don't believe anything in the first place.
Switching gears is exactly what President Trump had to do after his press conference with Vladimir Putin, attempting to walk back this remark on election interference.
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't or why it wouldn't be Russia.
Seeing it from his perspective doesn't make a distinction between what's true and what's false. His only distinction is what will work and what will not work.
And what happens when he's challenged with facts? What does he do?
He has a genius, perverse genius for turning any situation into something that is evidence of his brilliance, even if it's not true.
Gloria Borger, CNN, Washington.
I want to bring in our CNN political experts here with me now. They are the New York Times politics editor, Patrick Healy, and senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, David Drucker. Patrick, lying, stretching the truth. I mean, this has worked for Trump in business. So what if he has a little fib here or there? Do you think his voters care?
I think most Americans expect a level of honesty and directness from the president, but what Republican voters who support Trump have sort of bought into, and what the president has been now saying for years, is that the media distorts everything, and that the media is against me, and that to support him means to, basically believe whatever comes out of his mouth, even if the evidence is totally to the contrary, even if they could, voters could see with their own eyes.
Even when he has
totally
on
different.
camera said one thing one day, and you have the tape, and then he says, "I never said that."
Right. I mean, if you look at that tape of him saying, the would and then the wouldn't the next day. I mean, those of us who've covered Trump for years, that sounded like his natural cadence. There was no reason to think that he was pausing, confused by, now is he trying to say a double negative or not? And then, the cleanup the next day was just so hard to fathom, and you sort of wonder, does he believe that voters are frankly so gullible that they might just be willing to kind of go along with whatever he says?
David, at the end of the day, it does come down to what voters think, at least in the political realm and in the political future for these people. Do you really think they care?
I think they care in a global sense. If you ask any voter, do you care if your politician tells you the truth, they'll probably scream at you and say, of course I do. I'm so angry. They've all been lying to me for years. And then they'll
I asked that question in the context of, look at the economic numbers we just got yesterday and how well the economy is doing. Another president once famously said, it's the economy, stupid.
Right. I think when you then drill down and you look at this from lower altitude, what you find is that voters expect some level of line from their politicians. They think that all of them at least spin, and many of them lie when it's convenient. So they don't look at this as somehow, well, Trump's a liar, but nobody else really ever lies to me. They think everybody lies to them. And ultimately, while they would like to have politicians tell them the truth, and they would tell you that that bothers you in general, that they have been lied to in a campaign, and then politicians get into office and don't fulfill their promises, what they really want is a government that works for them and policies that deliver. And so I think that that is one of the things that can work for Trump, especially with Republicans, but even with independents in an election in 2020, for instance, where it's going to be him versus another candidate, and he can frame it as a choice. It can be, sure, I may have told you some things that were a little bit squirrely once in a while, but about that economic growth and about those jobs, and about the fact that I delivered on X, Y, and Z campaign promise. These are things that can work for him, especially, Anna, because the expectations for him from the beginning have been so low, and so much of how voters react to a politician is about what they expect. If they vote for you because they think you're moral, and then you're immoral, it hurts them. But if they vote for you knowing you're immoral, when you then act immoral, it doesn't really diminish you.
That's interesting. Now, Trump, he obviously is constantly talking about the fake news. That's a common term we hear out of his mouth. But he went a step further this week, it seemed, in his attacks against the press. Listen to what he told a group of veterans.
And just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening. Just stick with us. Don't believe the crap you see from these people.
People immediately began drawing ties between what he said and George Orwell's book, 1984. And a line from the book reads this, quote, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command." Patrick, is this what Orwell warned about?
It is what Orwell warned about, and it's galling. I mean, for the President of the United States to basically tell Americans, don't believe what you see, with your own eyes. I mean, what kind of sort of moral leadership is that? What sort of integrity are you kind of holding up, with that? Yes, I mean, to David's point earlier and yours, a lot of Americans right now are thinking about right track and wrong track, and they feel like we're having economic growth that is really significant. You have 4.1% second quarter growth, on track for a very strong year. A lot of Republicans certainly feel like the right track, is here, and President Trump is leading in that way. But the question becomes, this isn't just sort of little kind of white lies are sort of spinning here and there. It is, the United States' democracy being under attack from the Russian government, and President Trump being there in a room standing next to Vladimir Putin being asked, will you, in front of the entire world, denounce what Russia is doing? And instead he's sending a totally different signal. I think counting on voters in the midterms, basically saying, you know what, I feel like we're on the right track, economic growth is going well, the outrages that I feel might be cultural or identity, but they're not great in terms of economy, in terms of foreign policy. And the willingness, it's just hard to believe that people would be willing to go along with that kind of, let's say, advice. Don't believe what you see with your own eyes.
Some people want to believe what they want to believe, and in this day and age, with all of the different information avenues out there, people find what they want to find oftentimes. And this is a White House that really wants to control the message, control the narrative, David. In fact, new White House Communications Chief Bill Shine tried to defend banning CNN's Caitlin Collins from an open press event, saying it wasn't technically a ban. Listen.
Yeah, this was the most laughable
Hold on, let's
thing.
listen.
Did you ask her?